Sangha is invited to come back to our breathing so that the collective energy of mindfulness will bring us together as an organism, going as a river with no more separation. Let the whole Sangha breathe as one body, chant as one body, listen as one body, transcending the boundaries of an elusive self, liberating us from the superiority complex, the inferiority complex, and the equality complex. May the day be well and the night be well.
May the midday hour bring happiness too, in every minute and every second. May the day and night be well, by the blessing of the Triple Gem. May all things be protected and safe. May all beings born in each of the four ways live in a land of purity. May all in the three realms be born upon lotus thrones. May countless wandering souls realize the three virtuous positions of the Bodhisattva path. May all living beings with grace and ease fulfill the Bodhisattva's statutes. The countenance of the world honor one, like the full moon, or like the orb of the sun, shines with the light of clarity. A halo of wisdom spreads in every direction, enveloping all with love and compassion, joy and equanimity. Namo Shakyamuni Buddhaya. Namo Shakyamuni Buddhaya. Namo Shakyamuni Buddhaya.
Đâu cần dương liễu vương cam lô.
Một dòng mây phương rơi cung đầy, bao nhiêu trần lụy tiêu tan hết, đang tràn thanh tịnh ở ngày đây. Nam mô Bồ Tát Thanh Lương Địa. Nam mô Bồ Tát Thanh Lương Địa. Nam mô Bồ Tát Thanh Lương sanh trần ai, cam lồ chữa lành cơn khổ bệnh, hào quang quét sạch bụi nguy tai, liệu biến phát bay muôn thế giới, sen hồng nở hè vang lâu đài, cúi đầu ca ngợi dâng hương thịnh, xin nguyện từ bi ứng hiện nay. Nam mô Bồ Tát Quan Thế Âm. 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 Nam mô Bồ Tát Quan Thế Âm.
Can you hear me? Is the sound good? All over the meditation hall? I can speak louder here. How about now? Slightly better? So let us enjoy our breath and follow three sounds of the bell and go back to our breath and relax and enjoy the present moment. I have a little bit allergies so sometimes. Good morning. We are at the big meditation hall at the Blue Cliff Monastery in the middle of the OI retreat. And I think I remember it's like the 12th year that we have OI retreat. We started to have in 2007 when we first established here, and every year we have the OI retreat. And it's wonderful for me to present to you my co-lecturer or Dharma sharing, Sister Joanne Friday. I think she's a wonderful lay Dharma teacher who has a lot of experience in sharing the Dharma with everybody. My name is Brother Dharma Emptiness, or you can call me Brother Emptiness. Originally, I'm supposed to be the replacement for another brother named Brother Pháp Lạc, Brother Dharma Happiness. But he has some family problems that he needs to take care of, so he couldn't attend the retreat. So, dear Thầy, dear friends, we have listened to Sister Boi Nghiêm and Sister An Hương share about the basic practice before. Last night I listened to some part of Brother Bruce Nichols share about the beautiful continuation. So I thought I would share about maybe the beautiful practice, at least from my point of view, as the monastic practicing the 14 mindfulness training. So for me, when I hear the theme of the retreat, my first question is, what is a beautiful practice? You know, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. If you ask question to 150 people, different people have different idea how to describe beauty, how to describe beautiful practice. But there may be some commonality. For example, it could be a gentle, could be a kind, could be joyful too, because if it is crouchy, it may not be beautiful. Could be inspiring too. Could be complicated, but could be healing. And the whole bunch of terminology that try to describe a beautiful practice. So keep in mind that what I'm sharing you is has a two background. First have to do with the historical dimension. And the ultimate dimension. So in my sharing, I alternate between the historical dimension, so not to be so confusing. And the basic engine for driving the practice for me is mindfulness, concentration, and insight. So in general, when people asking, how do I practice having a beautiful practice, the key element is still always mindfulness, concentration, insight. But then there are a couple means we do to generate that beautiful practice and a beautiful continuation. Usually I have a bed writing, and I have only about half an hour to share, so I save time. I used to have 3 boards, but for today I just use 1 board. So for me, as a member of OI, living in the community of monastic in the monastery, for me, one of the first things is to live peacefully among the community of practice. I've been a monk for 16 years, so I live in the community of monastic, as well as some lay friends. And there are pros and cons. There are sometimes different opinion, sometimes different idea of how to do things, and we have to resolve because we are seeing each other 24 hours a day. And if we have some conflict, you have to resolve. I suppose you know all the basic practice already, so I don't have to explain the beginning anew and all the things. But to live peacefully is very important. And it also implies that you have a community of practice. As you know, I'm in the Dharma sharing with some of the aspirants to be ordained Sunday. And the basic thing we ask is, do you have a Sangha that you can practice with? That you can be nurtured in the middle of the Sangha, and you in turn will be contributing to help a Sangha building. So it's innate that you are already born from the Sangha, and you become a member of Sangha, and you contribute to the Sangha, and eventually you become the Sangha as well. So the ability to live peacefully in the community of practice is very important. Because if you are in conflict, you have a dispute, then it creates a very difficulty in the practice for yourself as well as for others. And to help that is to be diligent and motivated in the daily practice. And different people have different maturity of the practice. I remember when I was a novice, I used to hang around with a lot of novice monks, and we like to have fun. We like to do a couple of things here and there just to have fun. But the nice thing for us is we live in the community with a schedule. And the schedule dictates that we follow every event, session, classes. And we listen to our teacher Dharma talk maybe 300 days a year. That's a lot. So it helps us to be motivated to help us to be diligent. Now, if you live outside in society, you have to find that source of motivation, that source of diligence in the practice. So I think that's important to find it. For me, when I come to the retreat very first time with our teacher, I was very diligent in the practice. I was very serious. I don't talk too much. I just be mindful in walking, mindful in breathing, and listen to everybody, listen to our teacher. I don't get involved in a lot of things. I just want to practice. And often, from time to time, when you practice, you have some deep transformation. And to me, that's the engine that motivates me to practice more. I mean, I have some experience of deep practice. Even a few seconds, a few glimpses of it. But it helped the inner transformation. And then often I want to have that more. And of course, in the community, we have all kinds of things. I organized a 3 US tour with our teacher. That was very tiring to have like 1,200 people here for the whole week. And we went on to Colorado, we went on to Boston, and we have to provide logistic and all the other things. But the thing is, you always come back to the basic motivation and being diligent in the practice. And that's sustained me through all the difficulty, the challenge, the stress that sometimes come along with organizing all the endless meeting about this and that, And the other one for me is important is to be humble and to be respectful. I ordained much later. I was working as an international banker. I was working for 23 years. And I only became a monastic when I was about 48 years old. So here, I become a novice monk. And there are some elder monks that ordained before me that may be 22 years old, 25 years old, 27 years old, who give me the teaching, who can be my mentor, who give me advising on the practice. So for me, I need to practice humility. Of course, I know nothing about a monastic life. I never thought about becoming a monk before. So I have to learn the rope, how to live in the community, how to listen to people, how to learn new things about the monastic life. And we all have our intelligence, our talent, and often this is why I notice living in the monastic, in the community practice, is there is a talk of war between being cooperative, being humble, being respectful, versus display your intelligence, your talent. And I just add a little bit, sometimes we have what we call alpha personality. So here we talk about, we say, well, I know, I can do this, I can do that. Why don't you let me do that? Why do I have to listen? Why do I have to follow the practice? Often we have that kind of case happening to many monastics, because they're so eager to share the Dharma. They're so eager to do activism, to do something. And often from time to time, they only work on the level of intelligence. And we have many people who are very intelligent, very talented. Often I remember there was one senior monk who said that, I'm being a monk and I'm a Dharma teacher for 10 years, 10 years. And I think another monk, they say, well, I become a monk now, I've been 16 years, and I learned everything that needs to be learned. Because I listened to so many hundreds of Dharma talks from our teacher. But there is a thing, because luckily I understood everything that our teacher was teaching, because I learned French, so when he gave a Dharma talk in French, I understood. When he gave it in English, I understand. When he lived in Vietnamese, I understand. Luckily, I learned some Chinese. I'm not an expert in that, but when Thầy gave a teaching in Chinese, I remember a little bit, I understood some. And I have seen the depth of understanding of our teacher that go beyond the level of intelligence. Of course, he's a scholar in a sense. Often he would say, well, breathe and smile, and that seemed to be easy. But there is a lot of depth in the understanding of his insight that you need to be patient in practicing. And to work on that. And for me, it's always having to do with when he gave a teaching about some sutra or something. I would love all the winter retreat that Thầy was giving. They're so deep and they're so wide and profound that I was amazed how he get all those information, how he got those insights. And from time to time, when I listen to the talk, I always try to get another glimpse of this ultimate dimension. And that motivated me that I need to live among the Sangha. So I get the chance to deepen my practice. And it's not going to come right away. When you want something to come, it doesn't come. When you don't expect too much, it comes suddenly. So that way you have to be patient and you have to grind the practice. So one part about being humble, respectful is to let go of all ideas and the view. And that's difficult. Like we remember, I listened to some of the breathing sutra of our teacher, and I said, well, I listened for 6 years now, I probably know about the breathing sutra. And suddenly Thầy introduced 3 or 4 new versions of the breathing sutra. I said, where did it come from? I never heard about that. So there's a lot of information that you can learn new things about it. I think the other thing for me is to learn to look with the new eyes. So you always see things in a new way. I listened to the DVD Dharma talk yesterday, and I think it's January 14, 2004, and you look carefully, I was a little bit in the left side of the meditation hall. At that time, I was just a novice, 1 year, 2 years of the novice. But I don't find it boring to listen to the same talk. I learned how to listen with a new ear, with a new eye. One of the things I love about sharing the Dharma is I listened to the sharing last evening, and to hear when people come for the first time into the practice, or people come for the first time in Blue Cliff Monastery, and how wonderful they feel. Because until talk about it, we can have what we call a staleness. Stale. We keep doing the same thing on and off, and after a while, we are blasé a little bit. But for me, when I listen, I see things, I learn how to see through the eyes of the retreatant. I learn how to think as a retreatant who has encountered a lot of suffering and who come for the very first time and to experience the collective energy of mindfulness, of healing. And that is very transformative for me. I feel rejuvenated. I feel that I did the right thing to stay in the community. I did the right thing to become a monk. And I did the right thing to stick with the Sangha so I can do things. So I think to me, there is a personal inner transformation, but also there's a giving back. Often we have some senior monk and nun who after a while they feel, well, you know, I learned as much as I could from our teacher, and sometimes they would like to have some air, some space. So sometimes they go out, they do something. Maybe they travel, maybe they form their own monastery or something. But for me, I see that if we stick together as a community, we can do a lot of bigger things that I never thought I was able to do. Let me give you some example recently. When I ordained, I was young enough that I didn't go. Thay went to India. And I was a junior at that time, so I was not selected to go. And over the years, Shantam Seth and his wife had been organizing a pilgrimage trip to India. And he invited all the other monasteries, and finally he came to our monastery and he said, well, I would like to invite Blue Cliff to go on the pilgrimage with me. He has his own company, he take care of everything of us, you know. So normally the pilgrimage trip is for 2 weeks. But then he add some other thing. He said, well, it would be nicer while you are there, maybe you can give a talk, you can open retreat. And unbeknown to me, this is the first time for us to go. Most of us has never been to India before. So he said, this year I finally got the opening that I have the captain of the police force in India, of the whole state of Bihar. We have 15,000 officers, policemen. And I finally got the opening that we can go and share the Dharma with them. So I would like you, the monastic community, to come and share the Dharma with the police officer. Now, as a lay friend and as a novice monk, I never dare to think that someday I will go to share the Dharma with the police captain in India, let alone the police captain in America. Maybe it's tougher in America, I'm not sure. But I never get that experience. But yet, I was in the right place at the right time, because I live among the Blue Cliff Monastery. We opened regular retreat here, and then the opportunity came. So we went to several places, not just one place. We went to law enforcement officer, we went to forestry officer, we went to college, we went to the teacher college, we went to private school. So we went for 3 weeks of teaching. And to me, I was apprehensive, of course. I said, well, I don't have that experience. But at that time, the only monastic who can come to India are the ones who are US citizen and who has green card. Many of our younger brothers and sisters would like to go, but they don't have a proper visa to go there. So there's only the select few that can come, and I'm right in the community to do that. So to me, the benefit of doing that, usually you don't set your goal and you go about say, I want to do that goal, you know. So I don't become a monk with to say, I want to share the Dharma with the police officer in India, you know. I have no idea it's going to happen. So to me, the viciousness is very important. You do the basic practice. And then when you call open to share, you're already ready to do that. But you need to stick with the practice, and you need to stick with a group of people. I think to me, I'm very encouraged when I see a newly OI member who cooperate to work with other Sangha. I find it very odd. When I was in Philadelphia, I'm very enthusiastic with the practice, and I sit with 5 local Sangha. I practice one Sangha, they meet every 2 Saturdays. I feel that's too long. I find another Sangha on Monday. I find another Sangha on Sunday. I came to Omega retreat. We have something, and we form another Sangha. And I have no problem of, often people are very faithful to one Sangha. So they say, I practice with this Sangha. And they feel like I'm not allowed to practice with some other Sangha. Or sometimes we don't have enough energy to practice with another Sangha. But sometimes cross-pollination is very important. So sometimes, let's say, a Sangha can organize a day mindfulness only once a year. But if you have 3 or 4 local Sangha, each of the Sangha can organize only one day mindfulness a year. The other people can come and cooperate and help. So to me, that is a wonderful way of working together, to synchronize, to harmonize together the practice, and to infuse more energy into, rather than just to be stick with one Sangha. And sometimes we can have conflict, we can have some difficulty in the Sangha, and the spirit, the morale come down to the Sangha. But if you already are investing in so many Sangha, you don't have that kind of problem. Even if it's hard in one Sangha, you have nourish yourself with another Sangha, with another friend. So to me, this is very important to do that. Of course, the other part about beautiful is to become a role model. There is a teaching which is in Asian philosophy about chân thiện mỹ. Chân means true. True. You practice, so you mean true to yourself. You be true to the teaching. And thiện is mean goodness. So you been beneficial to yourself and to others. And the other one is the idea of beauty. And this is the concept that are more general, that not specifically to Buddhism, but could be with Taoism or some other Asian philosophy. So the two are interchanged with each other. The truthfulness, the true to yourself, true to the practice, and the goodness beneficial to others, and the beautiful in the practice. They all interchange with each other. So we practice in such a way you can inspire other people and to become a role model for other people. And of course, you need to be fresh, joyful. I heard Mitchell share yesterday or the day before, is 75% of people here are over 60 years old. And I think we have to ask that question, and can we find a way to inspire the younger generation to come into the practice earlier? I remember there was one retreatant at the Wangi Monastery in DC. He shared with us in the Dharma sharing, and he said that, I think it was Q&A, I think. He asked, lately, Plum Village has been investing a lot of time and energy to the wake-up Sangha, to the Viet wake-up, to the younger crowd. But does Plum Village have a practice, a retreat for the older senior generation. I thought about it, but I didn't answer, you know. Well, he's here now, so he can see. We don't have to invent a retreat for senior. We already have there, you know. Most of our retreatants are over 55. So to me, it's already happened, you know. But to me, to be serious also, when you are older, often we are stuck without intelligence. We're stuck with so much information. And sometimes we can be so serious, we said that serious. We don't inspire other people. Thay, with all his age, he always been communicate with the younger generation. And I take it from him, I learn from him. You know, I'm among the 75%. But I try to act young. And to me, that's very important to keep the beauty of the practice, you know. And I think that's about it I had to share. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Who's had some experience in this area. Dear Thay, dear Sangha, can you all hear me? Okay. I just would like to first invite you to maybe stand up and stretch a little bit since you've been sitting for a while. We need to be mindful of the body in the body and take really good care of it, as we were told by Thay the other night. Lots of shaking going on. Hi, dear friends. I would ask if we have one more sound at the bell, maybe, to come back to our breath. Dear respected Thay, Dear loving brothers and sisters, I am feeling enormous gratitude to be able to just be a part of this beautiful river. And it's been really wonderful to be able to practice together and to deepen our practice together. So I'm feeling enormous gratitude for the planning team for creating conditions for us to have this luscious silence, to be able to come back to ourselves and stop. So we could have some insights and create conditions where we could deepen our practice. I'd like to start off, some of you who know me know that I love poetry, and I wanted to start off with a poem I've been using quite a bit for my own practice and sometimes with our Sanghas. It's a poem by Martha Postlethwaite, and it says, "Do not try to serve the whole world or do anything grandiose. Instead, create a clearing in the dense forest of your life and wait there patiently until the song that is yours alone to sing falls into your open-cupped hands and you recognize and greet it. Only then will you know how to give yourself to the world, so worthy of rescue." And I really feel that that is what our practice is about. We've been given the opportunity to have this time to come back to ourselves, to stop. And it's creating, everybody who chose to be here is creating a clearing in their lives where we can stop and look deeply in order to understand, to observe our habits. I don't know if any of you found that you had any. I had a bunch of them. But we've had the opportunity to stop, rest, and heal. So I followed directions of my button. And lots of reminders of the basic teachings, which were really helpful, I thought. A lot of us who live in the rest of the world have been aware, if we've been paying any attention, that things are a little bit chaotic and challenging, and we get motivated to take action, that we want to do something to help. That's, bodhicitta has that aspect to it. And I just wanted to read something from this Thai's book, Good Citizens, which I've been really enjoying a lot. He said, excuse me, "We need to abolish poverty and social injustice to deal with the problems of global warming and economic recession, but we need to begin with the painful feelings we carry inside us. We have to deal with those things first. If they're not dealt with, we may inadvertently cause more suffering when we're trying to relieve it. The Buddha didn't begin his first teaching with the suffering of social injustice, poverty, and hunger, although he cared very much about these things. He began with the lack of peace within our own bodies and minds. We want to deal with suffering realistically and at the roots." Okay? So I just have really been appreciative of given the opportunity to come back to ourselves, to be peace. We cannot create peace in the world if we don't know how to be peace. So that's our first task. And then his friend Thomas Merton said, "There's a pervasive form of contemporary violence to which the idealist most easily succumbs: activism and overwork. The rush and pressure of modern life are a form, perhaps the most common form, of its innate violence. To allow oneself to be carried away by a multitude of conflicting concerns, to surrender to too many demands, to commit oneself to too many projects, to want to help everyone in everything, is to succumb to violence. The frenzy of our activism neutralizes our work for peace. It destroys our own inner capacity for peace. It destroys the fruitfulness of our own work because it kills the root of inner wisdom, which makes work fruitful." So I could understand why Ty and Thomas Merton were good friends. I just love the fact that the reminder, it kills the root of inner wisdom, which makes work fruitful. So we can run around doing our best, trying to help, and really create a lot more suffering if we're not doing it with clarity. So Tai says when we stop and calm, rest, and heal, we calm our minds, have some clarity, and then we know what to do and what not to do. If we act without that, we're probably going to cause suffering for ourselves and other people. Ties in, I just wanted to also say that I've really enjoyed getting reminded about the basic practices. I really enjoyed Anhung's reminder of taking good care of our wounded child inside of us. And that's been a real basic practice of mine for a long, long time, many years. And the thing that's interesting to me is that we've come to this practice. Thich Nhat Hanh had experienced all the horrors of war, and that colored his perception of the Buddhist teachings. He really was able to look deeply. He spent his whole life doing this, looking deeply at how can we treat each other that way? What's the cause of conflict? What's the cause of war? And he could see that in each one of us is the hatred, anger, and violence in us, and that needed to be transformed and healed so we could have peace on earth. He's given us the practices that we need. The problem usually is that we don't practice them, and that creates some problems. We wonder why we don't practice. And what I've found in myself and with other folks that I've worked with is it's fear. That he's given us the practices of beginning anew. Brilliant practice, amazingly powerful practice. What does it require? It requires that we become vulnerable. It requires that we accept that we're partially responsible for the difficulty. It requires that we look at ourselves. What part did I play in this difficulty? There's a Dutch theologian that I really admire quite a lot, and I thought he kind of summed up the problem in my eyes anyway, for as my own practice. He said, let us not underestimate how hard it is to be compassionate. Compassion is hard because it requires the inner disposition to go with others to places where they are weak, vulnerable, lonely, and broken. But this is not our spontaneous response to suffering. What we desire most is to do away with suffering by fleeing from it or finding a quick cure. And when I read that, all I could think of is that's a perfect description of what I do. And what the Buddha taught 2,600 years ago, I don't think I'm unique in that way. But 2,600 years ago, the Buddha's first teaching was suffering exists. Because 2,600 years ago, people were still not accepting what is. They were trying to run away from their suffering. How often do we try to, and this is what it says in our fourth training, we take refuge in consumption. We can work, run, jump, exercise, do drugs, do alcohol, do anything to try to get away from what is, what's true for us. So I think that what I see in Henry Nouwen's quote here is the fact that we are afraid to touch those places where we're weak, where we're lonely, where we're broken, where we're vulnerable. And what that does is I feel it makes it impossible for us to be present for other people. That if I'm afraid to be at those places myself, chances are really good that I'm afraid to be at those places with you. And so this is why Tai is so brilliant that he drives home the point. We need to be able to transform those things and develop our fearlessness. That's what our practice is about. I've always been just so inspired by Thai's fearlessness in his approach to Buddhism. I remember years and years ago at one of the retreats, a little child asking him, Thai, what are you afraid of? He said, everybody's afraid sickness, old age, and death. Just went right into that. And then they asked him something about, are you ever afraid about giving these dharma talks? He said, oh, once you've done something, you don't get too afraid about it anymore. But he was willing to go into places, and one child asked him, what's been the most difficult thing for you? Which I thought was a great question. These kids were asking wonderful questions. And he said, conservative Buddhists. So if we want to continue what he's given us beautifully, we have to develop our fearlessness, because that is the requirement. And just as my brother has shared with us, deepening our capacity for mindfulness and concentration, retraining our minds, seeing what has been our conditioning. What are the habits I've developed because of my conditioning? How does that color my perception of everything? And how is that causing suffering for myself and everybody else? Those are the challenges that we have. And to be able to get over our little ego-centered selves and be one drop in that beautiful river, it's so freeing. So, how do we do this? We practice. We follow instructions. He's given us every single thing we've needed. He's given us the 5 mindfulness trainings, the 14 mindfulness trainings, a perfect roadmap and guardrails to keep us on the path. There's really, when I think about it, if I only had one thing to read, it would be the 14 mindfulness trainings. That they're practices that will take many lifetimes. It's wonderful. And so, how do we get beyond the fears that we have? One of the things we can do is practice with the Sangha. That Thai would sign his correspondence with love and trust. Thai trusts us. He put his trust in the Sangha. I saw this over and over and over again, that I was stunned back in, when was it? Maybe 1996 that he upgraded the trainings. I don't remember, but when we had a revision of the 14 mindfulness trainings, turned it over to the Sangha. Hundreds of people all over the world, all of the order members were asked to give input. He trusted the Sangha. And he trusts us. So that's a big responsibility. And I love it. I think that when he first said, I remember the teaching that he gave, and he said, we need to, our triple karma, our thoughts, words, and deeds, we need to be very careful about all of them. They all have our signature. They're all our poems. And when he said that, he said, you have to be very careful of the thoughts you produce. And I thought, I produce them? I thought thoughts happened. I thought a thought just came up, and then I would just go wherever it would take me. And a feeling, oh, you mean I actually have a choice to either go with it or not? It was an incredible concept for me. And to retrain our minds so we're able to be mindful enough to watch these energies arise, notice, and choose, and have the capacity to make that kind of choice. Unbelievable. To me, that is what empowerment is. It's just so freeing. So where do we get caught? Like I said, I think we get caught a lot of the time in fear. We're afraid to go to those places in ourselves. We're afraid to go to those places with other people. We run and hide. We try to take refuge in all the wrong places, as they say. And the other thing I can see is we can use each other in the Sangha as mirrors for ourselves. I don't know how many of you notice when you're here, you have opinions that come up. Has anybody had an opinion since you arrived? A couple people have had opinions. The rest of the people are not very honest, but that's okay. We're not saying anything. We have opinions. And we get caught in judging and criticizing, making up stories. We assign motivation. We have no idea at all, usually. And Miller Williams, what I find is that a lot of times we make assumptions about people, their behavior or their practice, or we're taking somebody's inventory. As a Sangha, we can watch in ourselves. I've learned so much being here. You know, I think that there are people that have walked around. Sometimes people that are practitioners look very serious, and they look kind of grim. They're concentrating. And I've noticed that they remind me to smile. That Thai says sometimes your smile creates your happiness, and sometimes your happiness creates your smile. And what I find is that when I smile, some people smile back. And what I find is when people smile at me, I smile back. And I think he was telling us the truth. I think it really works. The other thing I notice sometimes is that the judgments and criticisms that come up in myself. It was kind of funny in a way. I read something online. Somebody sent me this thing saying, I just watched my dog chase his tail for 5 minutes and was amazed how easily entertained he was. Then I realized how easily entertained I was, but I just had spent 5 minutes watching my dog chase his tail. So this is how the Sangha works sometimes. It's like I can observe somebody and I can find there might be a judgment or criticism come up. I can make up a story or come up with a judgment and criticism. Or somebody will come to me and let me know that they're not happy about something. They're criticizing and judging somebody. And then I think, Then I find I'm criticizing and judging them for criticizing and judging someone. Like that. It's so easy to slide right off center and right into this dualistic thinking. This is why Thai called our order the order of interbeing. Because it's one of the hardest things for us to do, to get over our little ego-centered self, to recognize we have every single thing in common with everybody. We all have the same mental formations. We have to come to a place of fully accepting our humanity and doing our best to love everyone, doing our best to have compassion for everyone. We have all suffered. Everybody suffers. There's no escape. And just because of that, we can have compassion. We can find it in our hearts. I love the quote from Miller Williams. He says, have compassion for everyone you meet, even if they don't want it. What seems conceit, bad manners, or cynicism is always a sign of things no ears have heard, no eyes have seen. You do not know what wars are going on down there where the spirit meets the bone. Right? We have no idea. But the one thing we can be sure of is that the Buddha wasn't lying when he said that everybody suffers. So to use everyone and everything as our teacher. I remember one time at Green Mountain Dharma Center, Ty was up there, and he was giving a talk, and he said, if you had a teacher who told you not to smoke and you went outside and found him smoking, would you disregard everything that the teacher had to say? It wouldn't be wise to throw everything out. But he said the most important thing is that he's a really, really good teacher of what not to do. And if you can look at everybody that way, every single person's our teacher. Every person's either teaching us what to do or what not to do. And then we can benefit by every being. It's a wonderful thing. I was getting ready for the retreat and thinking about continuation. And I reread a letter that Ty had written a couple months before he had his stroke. And he'd written a letter with some of his concerns about continuation. But he ended the letter and the way the Sangha would continue and the pitfalls that we get caught in as a Sangha. So I thought this might be a good time to remind myself and maybe I could remind you. But he ended the letter with the Kalama Sutta. He said, every religious teacher, the Kalama Sutta says, every religious teacher who passes through our village, the people of this village of Kalama, said, every teacher who passes through our village says that their teachings are the best and most correct. But who should we believe? The Buddha replied, friends, do not believe anything, even if it is recorded in the sutras or it is taught by a famous teacher. Whatever you hear, you should use your intelligence and critical mind to examine it carefully, and then put it into practice yourself. If you apply it and you see that you are liberated from your suffering and your difficulties, you will see clearly that it is indeed the truth, and then you can believe in it. And then Tai says, sutras like this make it very clear that Buddhism is a very open, intelligent, and critical tradition. If we turn Buddhism into a dogmatic religion, that would be a great shame for the Buddha. We will have lost the purity of the Buddha's teachings and can no longer call ourselves soulmates of the Buddha. Okay? And yet, this is what we do out of fear. This is what it seems to me anyway, just from my own personal observation, is that we run and hide in the practice sometimes. It's like we can just hold on to the form. We can become more rigid in the practice. And we're not open to having it evolve as it needs to do. And he's always been just adamant about having the teachings and the deep understanding of the essence of the Buddha's teachings and how it applies to daily life, how it's appropriate for the present time. So we need to be able to continue to look deeply to try to understand that. So we must not become rigid or dogmatic about our own practice. He says that would be easy. That would be out of fear. Don't hide in the practice. And he wrote a beautiful poem, I think. And I'm not going to read you the whole poem. We're very limited in our time today. But I wanted to read you just a commentary that he wrote about the poem. It's called I Will Say I Want It All. And the poem, basically, the gist of the poem is that there's a monk who's been away for a long, long time. He comes back, and he's weeping at the altar. And he said he could weep for 10,000 years, thousands of years, enough to dry all his tears. One night, I will come and set fire to his shelter, the small cottage on the hill. My fire will destroy everything and remove his only life raft after a shipwreck. In the utmost anguish of his soul, the shell will break. The light of the burning hut will witness his glorious deliverance. I will wait for him beside the burning cottage. Tears will run down my cheeks. I will be there to contemplate his new being. And as I hold his hand in mine and ask him how much he wants, he will smile and say that he wants it all, just as I did. So, his commentary about this poem, he says, this is an old poem written back in 1954. Someone who suffers a great deal might need to hide himself for a while. It's fine to hide oneself for some time for healing, but there are people who want to hide themselves for a long time, like the practitioners who hide themselves in the sitting. They need someone to come and burn down their hiding place. Ooh, ooh, ooh. I love that poem. And this, again, is something, he's given us shining light. He's given us ways to mirror back for people if we see someone who's stuck, who is hiding, who's using the practice and not transforming and healing what needs to be transformed and suffering quite a lot. We can offer them a poem. But it's up to us to also to develop our own discernment. And that's a really, really deep practice, I find. we need to know. It's like we've been talking about stopping, calming, resting, and healing. We need to know when we need to do that, and then we need to know when we're being lazy, and then when we need to take action. That's up to us to develop over time, to check in with ourselves, to be honest with ourselves and honest with each other. And this, to me, is one of the glories of the Sangha, that I find that the trust that gets developed in the Sangha can hold that for us. We can trust the Sangha. He outlined some challenges in the letter that he wrote. And here are the obvious challenges that we have going forward as the OI. I think the biggest challenge, at least for me, is myself. I always find that to be the one to really deepen my own practice. And I look at it just as our brother shared in his beautiful sharing today, that I call it gentle diligence over time, to really be consistent minute by minute by minute as much as we possibly can. We don't have to criticize or judge ourselves, just simply notice. And whenever we notice we're off the rails, bring ourselves back over and over and over and over and over and over and over. You get the idea. To really develop a true fourfold Sangha. And I know my brother and I had a conversation about that can we work together even more than we do now to truly be, to develop our love, respect, and to strengthen the Mahasangha. And inclusiveness, and that's been talked about too. How do we engage marginalized communities? How do we engage the young? How do we engage anybody? We want to be able to be totally inclusive so we can look together as Sanghas and see how we can do that better. Then, of course, we're living in one of the most challenging times I think that human beings have experienced. Not only the usual challenges in the eighth realization of great beings, they state that the fire of birth and death is raging, causing endless suffering everywhere. Take the great vow to help all beings, to suffer with all beings, and guide all beings to the realm of great joy. So, we're going to be having a transmission tomorrow. Some of us have received a transmission already, to take a bodhisattva vow that we need to transform and heal ourselves so we can be present for others, and take the great vow to help all beings. That's a big challenge. And then we live in a time when there's a deliberate attempt being made to divide us and water seeds of hatred, fear, and divisiveness. We must not allow anyone to poison our stream of consciousness. And that means anyone, okay? That no matter, and this is where I find the practice to be extraordinarily helpful, is it helps us to cut through, like Manjushri's sword, to cut through the surface of things, to see when we're being manipulated by fear, to be able to discern, to develop our discernment and not go there. Like I said, they call it a stream of consciousness, and I don't want anyone poisoning my stream. So we take really good care of our own consciousness. We co-create the consciousness of everybody we love, every single person we're coming in contact with, and we're co-creating the collective consciousness. So depending on the quality of our own consciousness, that's the contribution we're making. Our responsibility is to take really good care of our own consciousness and to take really good care of everybody else's as well. So when there are people that are causing suffering, it's really easy to get carried away with hatred, anger, and violence ourselves, to get miserable. But what we need to recognize is that whoever it is that's causing suffering is really suffering terribly themselves, that they've had all the most unwholesome seeds watered in their own consciousness. And we need to take action. And we need to act out of love for our fellow beings who are being discriminated against, not out of hatred for the people causing the discrimination. We need to be very careful not to allow those seeds in our consciousness to be watered. That's not going to, our first responsibility is to take good care of our own consciousness. Because like I said, that's the energetic transmission that we're going to be giving out to everybody and everything we come in contact with. We also live in a time when we can see that we're destroying our life support system. The world is on fire. I look at it kind of as an image of what comes to my mind is it's kind of like having parents that have been poisoned by the three poisons, hatred and greed and delusion. And that they've set the house on fire in order to get the insurance money, because money's more important to them than their family. And so as children of these folks, we can see that the house is on fire, but we're being told it's not on fire. And that only makes us more anxious and more fearful. And so our job, like I said, is to not hate our parents. It's to understand that they have received very bad conditioning. Their consciousness has been conditioned powerfully, and to do what we can to get out of that house, to put out the fires. I think that I'll just finish up with, I think it's really important. It's very difficult when we're confronted. I just wanted to state what the challenges are, because they are there. And our teacher would never hesitate to speak the truth. And this is what's true for us. This is what we're living with now. How do we use the practice to maintain our equanimity in the midst of such challenges? And he has given us the most beautiful embodiment of that, because he's been there and done that and shown us the way. We have nothing to worry about. We need to follow directions. One of the dangers on the path is to fall into despair. How many people do I know that have said, I don't read the newspaper, I don't want to know about anything. I just can't stand it. I don't want to do that. I think what we need to remember is that we need to water lots of seeds of joy. That he's told us over and over again that if we need to be with the suffering we need to be with, we need to water seeds of joy to expand our capacity to be with that suffering. And so Howard Zinn had written a long time ago a beautiful article in The Nation, and he went through history and showed all of the ways in which history just turned on a dime. That there were really horrible, bleak times that people were living with, and all of a sudden, causes and conditions would change, and everything would be different. And that everything is impermanent. That Buddha's teaching on impermanence is so helpful to remember. I've been living with stage 4 metastatic cancer for 11 years now. So I had lots of time and practice to be with impermanence, or to practice with impermanence. And what I can say is that the things that have really helped is Ty's question, are you sure? Absolutely not. I wasn't supposed to live 11 years. What a surprise. I don't know how long I'm supposed to live, because I never asked. My oncologist said I was the only patient she had that never asked for a prognosis. And I said I wasn't looking for a psychic friend, I was looking for an oncologist. And I said, you have no idea how long I'll live, and I don't have any idea how long you will. And so let's just leave it that way. And we'll just go on enjoying life. I really think that it's such a gift to practice Don't Know Mind. When he has us ask, are you sure? What a blessing. It opens up total spaciousness. It has every possibility there. It's completely wide open. And when we can live in that place, we don't have to fall into despair because we don't know what's going to happen. We do our best to stay in alignment with our own integrity, to practice as deeply as we can, to do our best to try to create causes and conditions for the world to be a better place. And like I said, the most important thing is, I think, expanding our capacity for acceptance of ourselves and each other, and to develop our capacity to love ourselves and each other, and to go as a Sangha. I just wanted to end today. I had given a teaching and included an explanation of kintsugi, the Japanese art form of taking broken vessels and patching them with gold, so they actually make something that's broken into something, an artwork, really. And I had given this teaching, and I received a note from somebody in the Sangha that I wanted to share because I thought it was a beautiful description of the power of the Sangha. He said, I had come to a very powerful recognition of a feeling of transformation within me, which had to do with my process of being in the Sangha and continuous practice over this past 5 to 10 years. This feeling could only come over time because it has to do with trust and very slowly opening up my heart to vulnerability and actual experience of being in the community that acts in a way that it also speaks. A true consistency of teachings and action that is tangible, that I have been able to wrap my head and heart around at the same time. I have never had such an experience, and over time it has been transforming, so that I feel I have been actually able to recalibrate my truth. Based on this experience, I am worthy, I am lovable, I am someone who can make a mistake without feeling like I am a mistake. That is an incredible inner thought transformation. I am filling in the broken cracks in my vase with beautiful gold teachings and experiences. I am feeling such gratitude. So, dear friends, I think that we have our work cut out for us, and I think that we're up to it. If Ty can trust us to do it, I think we need to be able to trust ourselves. And if you don't mind, I would like to end today with a prayer. And this is a prayer for peace. May each of us who wants peace on earth make a commitment to transform the anger, hatred, and violence in our own hearts. May each of us who wants a world without conflict make a commitment to resolve in our own lives all conflicts, however small. May each of us who wants peace on earth and every child to be safe and happy make a commitment to help those parents we know who are struggling. May each of us who wants peace on earth make a commitment to work for justice. Without justice for all, there cannot be true peace for any. May each of us who wants peace on earth make a commitment to do our best to relieve suffering wherever we find it. May each of us who yearns for peace make a commitment to expand our capacity for love, compassion, and understanding for ourselves, each other, and the planet. May each of us who wants to live in peace awaken to the interdependent nature of all that is and realize that happiness is not an individual matter. May all beings truly be peace, so that the awakened, beloved community can become a reality on earth. Ty has entrusted us with this precious gift. He ended all of his correspondence to us with love and trust. May we love and trust ourselves and each other and continue beautifully.